Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Paz, Racing VTuber and artist, and today we're going to be working a little bit on some of the comic that we started was it was it Friday? It was probably I think might have been Friday. No, wait, Friday was the was that P5JS thing. So yeah, this would have been last week where we started this. But yeah, we'll be working a little bit on that. But first, I wanted to do the schedule art for this week real quick. I actually have a couple of images that I want to I want to add to the agenda. This is where I should start. This is where I need to start adding the stragglers to the meme redraw stream. I need to reuse them for the purposes of these calendar sketches. Yeah, last week we had this one, which was to celebrate the Año Viejo, which I'm not sure the intent came through very well. Like, I understand that this thing looks particularly crummy, but I don't know if it's enough to be like, oh, it's supposed to be like a paper mache cutout of the sun. But it is what it is. Alright, let's add this. God, yeah, it's already the 5th, huh? I was talking yesterday how it feels like we need to be further up on the year already. Like, I feel like we should have been on the 10th by now, right? It's going very slowly. But I'm sure things will pick up and be unpleasant again soon enough. There's all kinds of things to be happy about and all kinds of things to be angry about. This is good. That's balance. But yeah, the two that I wanted to add, one of them was this absurd image of Wolverine. I don't even know what the context is for this. Honestly, I don't think it matters what the context would be. But it is a very striking image, which is why I wanted to add it to the rotation. Today, something funny that happened to me is that somebody tagged me in V server. I think it was Ree that tagged me in a. No, it was V herself that tagged me in a situation that's like when I'm going band for band with the Emperor of Feudal Japan. And he suddenly brings out the, armfuls of silk, fine pottery, all kinds of valuable goods. I don't know. I think I've unwittingly provided myself with like an association with samurai and ancient Japan by pure accident. I'm more of a pervert about ancient China, personally speaking. But I think because I streamed Ishin for so long back in the day, it kind of rubbed off a little bit. But yeah, I'm gonna have to work a little bit with the proportions of everything in this image to make it happen in this more vertical space. Actually, yeah, while we're at it, let me go back and revisit a couple of the ones that were submitted for meme redraws. I remember from the first one there were a couple of them that were really good that I didn't get to do. Yeah, like this one here. This one would be pretty good. Let's get rid of these other pictures for a minute. I gotta mark these right as well. What's this one about? Oh, right, the honest woodcutter. I forgot that I added that to the rotation. Yeah, this one was submitted by Shelly back in the day. Is this... I don't know. I'm not sure about the idea of introducing text into some of these, but I do like the idea of vertical paths. It'd be nice if things could slow down this year compared to last year. But I get the feeling it'll still be hectic for a little while. What other ones were there? I did have a couple of them that I added regardless of the... I had a couple of them in store for in case I ran out. This was one of them. I think this one would be good. God, this is me on Friday night, actually. On Friday night, after a long time, I revisited the gym, and I think it went pretty well. I enjoyed my time there. I don't know. If you haven't exercised for a while, and you haven't gained any new injuries or your body hasn't become weaker, it often feels quite good to go out and exercise for a little bit. This is another one that I wanted to add. This is the ultimate Yu-Gi-Oh card to me. I don't care if it's poor in a meta sense. I don't care if it's not particularly valuable in terms of the resale value. This card, and I think it's another one called like Lastra's Sword. Hang on, let me pull up the picture for Lastra's Sword because that one also goes hard. Where is Lastra's Sword? This is my last resort. This is the one. The Overworked and this picture for Lastra's Sword are both some of my favorite card arts. Like the Overworked is my favorite because I identified with it greatly. But for Last Resort, it's like, yeah, these are the vibes. This is the ideal situation. Just kicking back on some very crummy folding chair in the middle of space. Ideal scenario. Well, maybe not ideal. If it had like a mini fridge in there with like with a packet of ginger ale or I don't know, one of those Chinese tisane drinks, then we might be talking a little bit more. You might be speaking my language with a little bit more clarity, a little bit more fluency. That might be a fun challenge, actually. I remember there was this one artist, Farfin, who did a redraw of characters with poses from Pokemon cards. That felt like a very creative idea, especially because Pokemon have such weird body shapes, right? No one Pokemon looks alike. So it makes sense that there would be all kinds of strange poses available to them. Did I have any other ones that I wanted to redraw? I think that might have been it. Reworked, Last Resort, the Pikachu weightlifting, vertical, bedtime, and then there's a bunch of these other ones. I wanted to, a little while back, I tried to find some iconic movie posters to recreate, and I gained some benefits with that, but for example, the E.T., there was one that I did that was based on E.T., for example. I don't know about some of these, though. Were there any from... I think there were also some from the other meme redraw stream. Because we've had two. But I think those were the main ones. Alright. Back to the topic of working on this top one here. Not this one. This one. This has a few challenges, actually, because first of all, what should I be holding in my hand? That looks like a normal beer bottle. I remember I did have that one of me on a couch with a bottle of Pilkis, but I don't know if that one will count for this sort of situation. Something that I should try to do now that we're moving into the new year as well is that I should try to rework the schedule document, because we're still working in 1920 by 1080, and ever since I've moved to working in what was it? It was basically double the resolution for the thumbnails for the gaming streams. I would like to be able to bring that innovation to my calendar art. I don't think it'll necessarily make the art more ambitious. What I'm hoping it'll do is I'm hoping it will just make it a little bit more high resolution. Just a tiny little bump in quality, in clarity. I feel like I accidentally always pick the more ambitious ones for the schedule art, but I think that's also okay. If I use like more ambitious ones while trying to retain that spirit of, let's keep this complicated, or let's not, that's the opposite of what I want to do. Let's keep this simple. I think it creates a much better challenge compared to just going like, okay, let's give this a due diligence. They do say that comedy is, to some extent, the contrast between the expectation and the real thing. In that regard, trying to take unserious things seriously and taking serious things unseriously might be another method for improving the comedy of the streams. That's something that I've been wanting to work on a little bit more, is my ability to yap on something that I'm not doing with my hands. So I've noticed that, and I don't know, maybe this is why you're here, just to hear me ramble on about whatever I'm doing with the artwork. I'd like to think that it is to some extent instructional, although that's probably wishful thinking. Although I guess you could use it in that way if you aim to use it in that way, but I don't think most people tune into the stream to learn more about the art programs. In any case, because I tend to just explain what I'm doing in the art program, it's a little bit hard to say. I feel like most people, when they tune into the art streams in particular, are probably busy working on something else themselves, right? You're either occupied with your hands, you're drawing your own thing, working on your own thing. I say this particularly because that's how I approach art streams, or streams where gaming is not the main topic. Something that maybe this could be set up as a goal for the year. I'd really like to get better at like those Satsudan type streams where it's just chatting. I really do feel like that one picture of a white dude in a kimono when I use Satsudan instead of just chatting. Even though I'm not white myself. Ay Dios. Okay, then over here. See, now I'm focusing too much on what I'm doing on the screen. And because most people aren't watching the stream, I feel like it'll be of a higher benefit. It'll create more value. Not to sound like a capitalistic drone, but it'll create more value for the viewer if it's something that they can watch or they can listen to without needing to see the screen. And that is to some extent a problem for anything that isn't live streaming. I feel like there is a time and place for media like that. I remember seeing a tweet, probably not true, would not be surprised if it was, that they were chatting with a Netflix executive about how they wanted their programming to affect their audience. And they said that one of the executives, at least, was like, we are trying, those moments where you kind of have to sit up in your chair, you kind of like lean forward and you try to pay more attention because something fascinating, something intriguing is happening on the screen. We're trying to make the content that is opposite of that. We are trying to make it so that you could just listen to the TV program, just have it in the background, never really pay attention to it, and still more or less understand what's going on, still be able to absorb it in that way. And personally speaking, I think that's a terrible idea for for directing a television series, a video media in general, because you want to captivate your audience. That is the main goal of most forms of art, is having a way to captivate your audience and have them be engaged with your story, have them hang on to your words, have them lean forward in their chairs and be like, "This, I gotta lock in for this. This is gonna be a life-changing experience." To some extent, I do want my streams to be very engaging, but on the other hand, I do also recognize that the average art stream viewer probably isn't doing it to gain information about what the streamer themselves is doing. Every now and again is okay, but wait, I don't have thumbnails, do I? Or I don't have fingernails, I guess. I have, as many people can attest, I have plenty of thumbnails. The expression is also very rich, I think. That's another reason why I think this image in particular was so popular, is that its expression is fascinating. Bump bump. It just looks so ill-tempered on my face. Maybe it's because I don't have the... I think what's offsetting this and returning the expression to a relaxed expression is the fact that it's kind of got this half-lidded look, which is very unserious. It looks very relaxed, so that's why even though the expression could be read as hostile, it's more of a peaceful hostility, I guess would be the phrase. That doesn't make much sense, though. That's a very strong contradiction for phrasing. But yeah, I'd like to be a little bit more mindful about how I can, I have some obligations. I keep bringing these up because they are very important to me. I have a few obligations that I still need to complete by the end of the year. But even now, I want to be thinking about the future for what I make as a streamer, the way that I communicate to the audience, the way that I present myself to the world. I think it's extremely valuable to reflect on that, particularly now, as it is the beginning of the year. Fresh starts for everyone, for most people at least. I know a lot of people are still caught up with stuff that happened to them in 2024. That's how it is sometimes. How does that look? I need to make my face a little bit wider. Hang on. First of all, make this a little bit bigger. But then also just up on this top area, we want to make this part just a tiny bit. Maybe not this line specifically. Or actually, maybe, yeah, that line specifically, but we can... We can work with this. I feel like when I was a kid, I struggled a little bit to drink out of glass bottles like that. I had I don't know, I didn't have the methodology down. I was okay with cups and plastic bottles, but I had a lot of difficulties with glass bottles for a long time. Don't even get me started on Ramune bottles. Those things were like a Rubik's cube of hydration for me back when I first tried one. I remember I first tried a Ramune back in university. I there was this during the week that I went there, during like the very first week I was there, for some reason there was like this small expo of Asian goods because we had I think the main reason was because we had a lot of Asian exchange students. So we had stuff from China, we had well East Asian, right? Well, actually no, there were a lot of Indians there too, and they are also Asian, so that's there was a widespread, but it was mostly East Asian stuff. So it was mostly Chinese, Japanese, Korean. And so I got myself a bottle of Ramune from the display of goods. They were selling them, and I got myself a bottle of Ramune, and I first of all, I struggled to get the bottle open. I understood the principles of Ramune bottles. I understood that they were not easy to open normally, but I didn't estimate to the extent that they would be difficult to open. I I was struggling real bad until eventually I managed to hit it hard enough that I did actually pop the bottle open. And actually, I think instead of having a bowl of chips here, I'm gonna have some popcorn. But yeah, I had to very painstakingly drink the Robinette because again, I had no idea. This is my first time drinking this stuff, and I had no idea how the bottles worked. And so it took me like 2 hours to finally finish drinking the whole thing. And at the end of it, I attacked the bottle with a knife yet again. I had to attack it with a knife twice. I had to attack the bottle with a knife to get it open, and I had to attack the bottle with a knife because I wanted to retrieve the marble from inside the bottle. I won in the end, though. I did eventually get that marble, although I don't know where I definitely don't have it with me anymore. I can't recall where it is off the top of my head. I probably threw it out at some point. But I kept it for a while as a trophy of my persistence and dedication. I'm definitely the kind of person that can get physical things done if they are stupid and I am determined to do it. There was that one time I disassembled a chair in my apartment using a hacksaw because I didn't want to pay somebody to move it out into a landfill or whatever the hell they do with old furniture. So instead, I very methodically went about disassembling it, taking it apart piece by piece, and finally just threw away the individual parts quietly, not quietly, as I gradually took it apart. It was a good feeling though, and I did have fun disassembling the chair. The other day I did end up eating a whole bag of cheese-flavored kettle corn, and I do not regret my decisions whatsoever. That was tasty. I used to do that pretty regularly back in university, come to think of it. There were these huge bags of kettle corn that they just sold basically anywhere in Canada. And so I would buy these massive bags and I would just wolf on them. Sometimes the whole thing at once. Sometimes it would last a couple days, but no matter what, it always ended up in my stomach. Well, that's what you ought to do with food, at least. I don't know where it would end up if not my stomach. on the floor, perhaps? But yeah, food exists to be eaten, so you should try to eat whatever good things you have as quickly as possible. Although I can understand trying to ration out good things as well. Or rationing stuff out, or eating something slowly because of a reasoning in your diet, for example. You know, for example, you can't handle rich foods anymore. You probably shouldn't finish off a huge bowl of spaghetti carbonara at once. Let's shrink this down a tiny bit. But yeah, I learned that eventually. I learned the trick to drink out of glass bottles was to leave just a tiny bit of space for the air to escape to enter into the bottle while it's at your lips. And actually, I'm going to remove the second finger from the equation. The proportions just look better to me if it's just one finger over here. I guess I should make the couch a little bit bigger. It feels like something's definitely missing from up here, right? And actually, hang on. I know what to put up here. I'm going to add like a picture frame. And actually, I have an opportunity to do something very funny with the picture frame as well. First, let's finish making the picture frame itself. Maybe a little bit smaller than that. I thought about putting myself but scaled down in there, but I have a better idea actually. I'm going to make pop art of Rice Beast. Have you guys seen that Marilyn Monroe? I think it's Marilyn Monroe at least. They have a... Hang on. I'm pretty sure, I'm 80% sure it's Marilyn Monroe. And I feel like we don't get to see a lot of Marilyn Monroe nowadays. This is the one. Yeah, Andy Warhol. Very famous picture. But yeah, I'm going to add a portrait of Rice Beast here. Okay, then one down here and one on the left. Right. That's right. Okay, then erase this little bit right down here. Then let's fix up the tail just a tiny bit over here. And I guess we should add a halftone layer here. Pick color from layer, this one here. Something about this bottom half is still bothering me. My god. There might be something we can do to help it. Trying to figure out where I would put the rest of the hoodie. I think I'm just gonna have to take the L and not add the foreshortened hoodie. And while we're at it, we might as well color in the bottle a little bit. Alright, that should do it for the schedule art. We can move on to the next thing to do here. Oh yeah, Jay sent this one, didn't she? Marilyn Monroe, huh? It really does feel strange. I feel like she was such an icon, but all of a sudden I feel like I don't know, people don't really refer to her nowadays. I think she really did just come and go in terms of fame. I feel like she's probably still very influential though. It's hard to say. I'm not too familiar with Hollywood or the people who work in it. Now comes another matter. No, I was wondering whether I should try to use the... If I should use the actual frames created when I was slicing up the panels beforehand. Oh yeah, you might notice that I changed up the how would you say it? The structure of the page itself a little bit. I added a couple more panels here and there. So, for example, right now when he's talking about his first love, it goes to the picture of the first love rather than to him directly. I thought it would be good to go to him directly because it would show that this is him younger. But I think you could make that connection as well. I think the biggest challenge is going to be making him look enough like himself. If that makes sense. Oh yeah. I did need to do something else before I got started on that though. I did need to use the blurring on the filter. Oh, is this not the right layer? Oh, it's down here. Or up here, rather. That might be too much blur. If you blur it too much, it becomes difficult to tell what you did yourself. But if you blur it just a little bit, it is a fabulous trick. I only learned it recently myself, but it helps you... Oh, I should have flipped the line art as well. But that's okay. I'm trying to make this comic as messy as I possibly can, while cutting as many corners as possible. That might sound like a lousy work ethic. Because it is. But I also think it's very important for the sake of expediency to just go at a good clip and, you know, correct it in post rather than to try and make something perfect right off the bat. Okay. I will say, learning about vector layers has been a huge help. I don't have much more to say about them. I sing their praises every single day of my life. I am the #1 vector layer warrior. Potentially #2, actually. I do know there are some artists who are more vector layer pilled than I am. The shoulder seems messed up too, actually. I see where I went wrong. It should have been more hunched over like this. The arm should go a little bit further out. Or should it? This is why I'm a little bit bothered by things like not using the 3D models it creates small issues like this that, while they would be easy to solve if I had used the models, or actually they would be non-existent if I had used the models in the first place, they tend to crop up because I hadn't used the models. I've expressed this sentiment many times. I don't know when I'll learn my lesson. I doubt it'll be soon, however. I think I'll also make the eyelashes a little bit thinner. Not too much, but definitely thinner than how they appear here, because this almost looks like that expression that Frieren makes, which is not what I'm after. Maybe make the mouth just a tiny bit smaller. And move everything a little bit to the left here. Okay. Yeah, his face looks a little bit too wide. We gotta move it a little bit closer to the left again. There we go. I'd really like to gain the skills to improve my freehanding. That definitely feels like the ultimate skill when it comes to working faster, right? I've come to realize lately that the only real freedom we have comes from whatever skills we develop. If you can create something, then that means that you have some freedom. Of course, the more involved the creation is, past a certain point, you're not going to be able to make it yourself, so that's when you have to give up a little bit of that freedom in order to make it happen, rather than make it exactly as you wanted. I think I still have too much pride to easily involve others in the work that I do. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I learned a lot of skills trying to DIY everything. But there are some things that are just going to be unrealistic to try and do. For example, I think I could probably make an animation, but in terms of music, even though I did play around with it a little while back last year, I think it's still absolutely not at the stage where I could make a track myself. Let alone one that's good to listen to. I'd still like to earn that freedom someday, though. Yeah, something about the arm just feels wrong. Okay, just clip that off here, and perfect. Hang on. I think I'm just gonna have to move most of this a little bit to the left as well. I feel like I'd be quite skilled at making impressionist pieces regarding how often I seem to put proportions out of place and I just need to move them to the left to make them right. Wait, hang on, I gotta check on his character reference sheet. Does he have a belt on the chaps? That's not the right one. Okay, yeah, this is closer. But that's still not... Hold up. Oh, there he is. Okay, yeah, no, the chaps don't have a belt on the inside like that. But they do have one on the outside. I'm gonna drink some water real quick. So yeah, no belt out here, but there is a stripe that we have to be mindful of. Not quite. There we go. Okay, then this is gonna have a bit right here. Hmm. Alright, and these will have that mark out here on the sides, in addition to being on his chest. Then after that, I don't think there is anything else that I need to be wary of for the pant legs. Or for the chaps, I believe. I'm gonna leave behind the weapons for another time. I think right now I'm just gonna focus on the foreground art. And actually I think I'm gonna extend the elbow just a tiny bit to be down here. So that way I can just slope the curve over here. Perfect. Moving on to the second panel. I think I am gonna keep this guy. I don't know about this guy on the left here. I think I'm gonna keep him anyway. I'm gonna have this guy missing a bit of his ear. I don't know. I feel like between this guy and the guy we're gonna have on the next page, we're gonna have too many dudes who are wearing sleeveless shirts. But I think it's a good fashion choice, at least. Okay, and then that's gonna come down like this. That last braid was a little bit too long, I think. Okay, then over here. Perfect. But yeah. I think it's especially because of Sarah's Fauna's recent graduation. Although it seems like she'll be back pretty soon. I am impressed at the kind of world record pace turnaround times that we've started getting recently. It is nice. I don't know. It's very comforting, right? Because I think for a long time we still hadn't quite understood what it means to say goodbye to someone in the virtual world. If you say goodbye to someone in the material world, there's no guarantee that you'll see them again. But if you say goodbye to someone in the virtual world, then there's probably a decent chance you'll be able to meet them again one way or another. Especially if it's someone who makes their living off of live streaming like a live streamer, or makes their living off of the internet like a live streamer. They eventually have to go back to what they know, right? And even if they don't have to go back to what they know, they very often do end up going back to that just because of the good memories that they had. I think it's a very good thing. I remember back during Coco's graduation, it was like Elvis had died again. It was like Michael Jackson had died again. But you know, over time we were okay. We were cool now. I'm pretty sure she's living her best life. She's living a life that I'm jealous of, if nothing else. But yeah, something that I noticed about Fauna's graduation is how much everybody said that they enjoyed talking to her and listening to her. And I think that's something that I'd like to improve at, because I feel like I can keep talking. I think that's one benefit that I have, is that no matter what happens, I will not permit dead air. I'll eventually start talking about one thing or another, or just talk about what I'm doing at the time, or something that's happened to me recently, and that'll move the conversation along at least a little bit. But it feels very unrefined. How do I put this? Once you gain a certain degree of skill in something, it feels like you're able to do it on autopilot. But then if you do that, it'll actually decrease your skill. You need to be able to do it mindfully as well. So I'd like to be able to see more streams like that of people who are skilled at talking. The only issue is that the only issue that I can think of is that they also have like a large number of people chatting that also helps to maintain the conversation. But that's not something that I can do anything about. It'd be nice if I had someone that I could learn from that didn't have that as a what was that thing? Okay, there's the X factors, there's the Y factor, and then there's the control factors. Is that the one? I'm thinking about like those scientific experiments where you change one thing and observe the other and try to keep everything else the same. Variable. That's a word that I'm thinking of. Variable. But yeah, I'd like to be able to observe someone who's good at talking without that variable. But that's quite difficult because, especially in a medium like live streaming, it's if they don't talk about chat interaction at all, it's a little bit difficult because then you're just talking by yourself and not really paying attention to chat. Conversely, if it is a person who has a lot of people who are actively talking with them, it also becomes a little bit challenging to adapt that because I guess you just be pretending the chat is there when it isn't. It almost sounds like a mental illness. Should I give her a tooth gap? I think it's a cute little detail. Okay, and then over here. I want her little diadem here to give her a little bit of forehead showing. May having a Superman type lock of hair coming out from under the diadem would be a good compromise. I do think the side lock would probably be much further in, though. I am very proud of myself that now I'm finally remembering the word side lock more frequently. I don't know, have you ever had that situation where for a long time you couldn't remember a word, but all of a sudden you're able to remember it? It's happened to me a couple of times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4's a thematically important number anyway. Why not? Okay, there we go. I think in reality the diadem will probably have around 7 stars, but I don't know where... I mean, I could put them up here. Actually, yeah, that would look kind of interesting. Recently, I was watching the after concert debrief that Ina did after her 3D live, and it was very funny because she put up the name Pleiades first, and then selected the number of guests without realizing that the Pleiades are called the Seven Sisters as a constellation. It was just a pure coincidence that she had done it that way. But thanks to that, now I'm a little bit more familiar with it. And I don't know. I think it looks cooler to have. I feel like if it was just this, it could almost look like a forehead scar or something, depending on how I shaded. But with this, it's very obvious that it's some kind of strange hair decoration. Oh yeah, I also gave her a trench coat. I wanted to make this character with the idea that she could be anybody, in the sense that she doesn't seem to have like a fixed... It's almost like a sort of sense of anonymity. And in that regard, I feel like a trench coat probably fits pretty well. Because trench coats are associated with all kinds of characters. They're associated with detectives, they're associated with suspicious people. They have a lot of variety in their interpretation, but I think the thing that's most important about them is that they indicate that they are a kind of very covert person, if that makes sense. Like, I think the reason that Peter Falk's character Columbo is so effective with the trench coat is because it kind of hangs over him, right? The trench coat itself kind of makes him look way bigger than he actually is. It kind of hangs onto him, but it also it makes him look shabbier. But I think it also does provide a sense that this is like a visitor, if that makes sense. I don't know, something about the trench coat, maybe because it's supposed to be very durable or it's fit for all kinds of weather, including rain. It makes me think of someone who's not going to stay there for very long. Although that might just be my own perception. It's very interesting how there are... How would you say? Semiotics for certain professions, ideas, and things, but not for others. And even if there are semiotics for those things, they don't always necessarily translate well across cultures or language. Earlier today, for example, I was thinking about the Chinese word the jianghu, right? And that's a term from wuxia fiction. That's the idea of the jianghu. It literally means rivers and lakes, I think. But the idea of the jianghu is that it's a sort of subculture, a sort of infra-society that exists outside of the law, but within greater society. And anybody can be part of the jianghu. Anybody can be part of a faction of the jianghu. It has its martial artists, which is where it intersects a lot with the wuxia genre, but it, more than anything, is just supposed to be a lawless place where, not even necessarily a place, but it's not a location, but it is just a place where strange things can happen and the reader can be justified in that these strange things can happen. It's a place where, because there is no law, they have the ability to express their own moral conduct. And this is relevant because in a lot of the stories, the characters meet up with bandits, with martial artists who have duels to the death. those would normally not be understandable or acceptable as part of conventional society. So the very clever genre writers of wuxia just created an outside society that did permit these things, did permit grudges to be settled this way, and that it made sense for grudges to be settled this way because the courts had no influence on them. And it's fascinating to me because these sorts of places, this idea has been expressed a couple of times in Western literature and thought a little bit as well. Because, for example, the idea of a pirate utopia is one of the ones that I came across that has a parallel to the Jianghu, in that it is like the Jianghu, a place where lawlessness is the norm. But conversely, it doesn't have the same kind of implications that the Jianghu has. So it's not a perfect fit for what I'm looking for. The closest thing that I could come to think of in terms of just what the Jianghu is meant to signify and the connotations of the word itself, the closest thing that I could think of is like saying the Sherwood Forest, for example, right? Like if you say that, you would think of Robin Hood, of bandits who are skilled with weapons and thumb their noses at conventional law, that live outside of the law and try to just try to live by their own morals. It's that kind of situation. But there is no perfect translation to it. I read a couple of articles that were discussing how would you translate that, and there really is no good translation to it. It's a concept that exists in the wuxia genre that is not literally translatable. You could call it the underworld, right? Like you could, because it does involve criminals, and this hand is way too small. I need to make it bigger. But yeah, because it does involve criminals, but it kind of doesn't have that same idea of a place where people can make their own laws. It doesn't create that idea of freedom that I think that the Jianghu normally... Ah, shoot, I lost it. That the phrase Jianghu normally implies. And it's also divorced a little bit from the concept of martial arts. Because martial arts was not nearly as big of a fixture in Western writing. I mean, it was in its own way, right? You would hear a lot about, knights who were really good with swords, or legendary archers, returning to the topic of the Sherwood. But it didn't have... For some reason, the extent to which they were emphasized was not the same as in Chinese writing. So there's no real good way to translate it. Even if you translated it literally, it would still not make sense. It was originally called that because the areas near the mountains near to the lakes and rivers were often more divorced from the capital cities, or kind of the places where courts had more influence. So because of that, the phrase was born. At least that's my understanding of where the phrase came from. Apparently, it also has some ties to older poetry, but it's hard to say. In any case, that was the conclusion that I arrived to. The one that has the phrase or word that has the best match for what the Jianghu is supposed to be is like the Sherwood Forest. Because again, you have these very much outlaw characters that live by their own ideals and don't cooperate with conventional arbiters of justice, but are nevertheless just themselves. Hmm. Oh yeah, speaking of outlaws and the underworld and criminal stuff, the copy of my copy of the Book of Swindles that I ordered finally came in the mail today. So I'm very much looking forward to getting started reading through that. I'd like to get myself a second bookmark that I really like. I have one that I really like that has Hatsune Miku on it that I bought at Walmart at some point. That's the two things that I remember about it, that I bought it at Walmart and that it has Hatsune Miku on it. It is currently loyally sitting in my copy of the House of Leaves. Again, I want to try and get into the habit of reading a proper book before I go to bed because obviously that's going to be much better and easier to stop than doom scrolling. Unless I don't know, maybe I get really absorbed into it. That's kind of why I'm hoping that the Book of Swindles will be good for my bedtime reading. I feel like the I feel like I had a really good run for my sleep schedule a little while back, but now it's kind of gone back up in flames. So I'd like to get that mojo back. So I'm hoping that's what the Book of Swindles will help me do. Yeah, House of Leaves is absolutely not bedtime reading material, I don't think, unless you're someone who doesn't get scared easily. However, that is not who I am. So, Book of Swindles it is. I don't know. Sometimes I think that I'm exaggerating my own degree of cowardice might not be the right word. How much horror things affect me. But then I remember that but then I do get easily scared again. And I'm like, oh no, okay, so I am just like this. It's kind of refreshing in a way. There's a lot of truth that I'll never know about myself because I didn't bother to look or because I didn't um explore them. But I know at least one, which is that I am a huge coward about horror stories. Although I suppose that if it was an oral horror story, if it was one that was told orally, that one might actually be kind of up my alley. I don't know. I like the idea of ghost stories that are told just person to person. Although those will probably give me. I don't know. It feels like it's been a while since I've had a nightmare. You know, fingers crossed, don't jinx myself. So I'm hoping that I can keep it that way for a long time. I feel like there do exist people that are thrilled by their own nightmares, or rather, maybe they have dreams that thrill them, but would be considered nightmares by other people. I'm sure even those people have something that they would not like to dream about. Is that handle in the right proportion? Close enough. Hmm. Now that hand's good enough right there. There we go. I do feel very proud of the choice of combining the idea of these wax tablets with a IBM 500 looking dot matrix printer paper. I don't know. I feel like I cooked with this idea. Actually, it feels like I've had to draw these wooden frames quite a bit recently. I drew a wooden frame for Dominique for the what do you call the thumbnail for Bloodstained yesterday. But yeah, I think we're definitely coming up on the last episode of Bloodstained next week, which is great because I have what do you call? I have a tabletop role playing game session that I used to have with some friends on Saturdays, which has recently been reinitiated. But I think next Saturday the DM is out of commission for some time, or I don't know. Ryan said he had something to do, but I don't remember the exact details of it. Okay. So maybe I should have some scribbles on here. I don't know. What's a good... I'm gonna add the... Do we know what the... I'm tripping over my words. Do we know what the molecule that's in ibuprofen looks like? Hang on, like ibuprofen... Wikipedia. A non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug that is said to relieve pain, fever, that is used to relieve pain, fever, and inflammation. This includes painful menstrual periods, migraines, and rheumatoid arthritis. This may also be used to close a patent ductus arteriosus in a premature baby. Oh, wow. Huh. How about that? Oh, yeah, okay, so ibuprofen is the proper name for Advil, Motrin, and Nurofen. Okay, I was wondering. I thought Advil was like another thing entirely, but it seems to just be ibuprofen. That's good to know. Okay, let's just add the ibuprofen thingy. But yeah, a little bit of background lore-wise on what this person is working on. She is a sort of apothecary, and she's essentially trying to find a solution to an issue that a lot of people have where they become extremely ill when exposed to this universe's equivalent of mana. It's not going well. I do think she's actually struggling quite a bit with it. But part of that is to create a serum that can relieve the damage caused or actually inoculate the person against that kind of sickness. I do also think that it's just funny to add ibuprofen into this setting. I don't know. It's funny to imagine martial artists from a wuxia set piece using ibuprofen and other over-the-counter medicines. Let me look up at a trench coat real quick. Right, okay, so now I remember a little bit more about it. Got 2 rows of buttons, and it's got the little belt thingy. For the belt, it does seem to just kind of knot up over here. Slowly reconsidering reworking my character's outfits to all follow the menswear style advice that guy on Twitter gives. I don't know, that's a terrible idea, but I do think it would be a little bit funny at least. I'm also going to expand the collar a little bit. This one seems, the one that I'm looking at on my browser on the other screen seems to be a slightly different type than what I have in mind, so I won't try to add everything that I see. Not to mention, I do want to keep this relatively simple. I do wonder what I should... I feel like I need to put some kind of pattern on the buttons, though. To make them mean something. The current draft name that I have for this character is Ava, so maybe I should also make it kind of a palindrome or something. I don't know, some kind of symmetry visual puzzle. Hang on, symmetry optical illusion. What I'm also thinking of is that one that's like 2 people being putting their faces very close together to make a vase. Hang on. 2 people boss illusion. It is pissing me off how when I looked up optical illusion, so many of these look AI generated. But that, I mean, some of them do. Some of them do. Hang on. All sizes, anytime. How about past month? I despise the fact that I can no longer live in peace with just trying to Google something, and I have to keep my eyes peeled for some AI bullshit. Reuben Boss, that's what the name of the optical illusion that I'm thinking of is called. Or Reuben Vase. Vase. Danish psychologist Edward Reuben. Ambiguous images of a versatile figure. Here we go. See also pareidolia. Okay, cool. Optical illusions. Austereogram. A 2-dimensional image that can create the optical illusion of a 3-dimensional scene. Ambiguous image. The figure can be seen as a young woman or an old woman. See my wife and my mother-in-law. Hang on. A famous ambiguous image which can be perceived as either a young woman or an old woman. The young woman appears with her face turned away from the viewer, while the old woman appears in profile. So, hang on. In profile, so the part of the drawing represents the young woman's ear and the old woman's eye. Oh, I see. So this is the nose, this is this part here is the eye, this is the nose, and this is the mouth. The young woman's choker is the old woman's mouth. I see. Oh yeah, you can also see it a little bit here. What else you got? We got the rabbit that's also a duck. Numerical digits. Gestalt grouping rules. A kinesia triangle. These spatially separate fragments give the impression of illusory contours. Cool, but not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for symmetry more than anything. Verbeek strips could be seen differently when viewed upside down. Hang on. Oh, did it turn around by itself? That's so weird. Okay, what's it look like upside down? Oh, it's a kid coming up on a boat with a fish. That's neat. Right, the head that's a basket of fruit. We've all seen this one. We know this one. Don't we, chat? We know this one. French caricature of Napoleon. Bandiguet avant la guerre. Bandiguet revenant de la guerre. I don't think Napoleon looked like that, bro. Drawing a reversible female face by Rex Whistler. Huh. John Lane, The Bodley Head, London. Ambigram? What's that? A calligraphic composition of glyphs that can yield different meanings depending on the orientation. Huh. Binocular rivalry, a phenomenon of visual perceptions in which perception alternates between different images presented to each eye? Huh. Sator square, word square, and a palindrome with the letters S and N reversed. Mirror ambigram. I can't read that. Wash your sins, not only your face in ancient Greek. Monastery Pangia Malevi. Okay, this one says... Oh, is this also just chump upside down? That's pretty funny. Bong Mo Pod Hey Dip. I like this one that says honey. I'm gonna keep my hand on this one. The quarter-turn natural ambigram of Ohio. You could probably drop this one like Potemkin at round start in some group chat in some Discord server like 10 months ago and get like orbital laser beam cannoned out of the server immediately. I am glad that Ohio has been removed from the litany of particularly contemporary words. I know a lot of them are lifted from African American vernacular English, but some of them are just straight up from things from the internet. Like Skibbity. We all know Skibbity. More or less. But yeah, I never understood why Ohio got put in there. It always seemed like a little bit of a reach. Didn't seem quite as universal as the other one. Like all strobogrammatic numbers, 69 is a natural rotational ambigram. I know that's right. This Wikipedia ambigram is pretty cool, actually. I like how it looks like graffiti. Indua Nepal. That's a cool one. Ambigram, 2 words, stay here. Fake and real, showing alternatively one version of the pair. This one would have done numbers to some tortured soul in high school. Home, away, lift London. Perfect. Vertical axis mirror diagram. Oh, I see what they mean. You can split it right in half then, can't you? Nothing written. Body and yoga, motel. This one's messing me up a little bit. Ambigram tessellation future. I quite like this one, actually. But it's getting further away from what I'm interested in. What's this one? Jew and Muslim, also incidentally a chain ambigram. Oh, cool. Ignore wrong and also wrong ignore. The Alabama A&M University has a totem mirror ambigram logo. Okay. I think that's the one that I'd be most interested in. Maria monogram is close to a totem ambigram. Okay. Metro composed of symmetrical letter M, then section ER, then below O. Or the sentence thank you, THA, then symmetric NK couple, then YOU. Alright. Bear and door is a Korean ambigram. I do like that. For numbers as well, there are some. This is quite deep, isn't it? The movie Anna by Luc Besson, 2019, reveals on its poster a mirror ambigram of vertical axes. Okay. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. Texas sexy. Dogma, I am God, turned into a mirror ambigram. Okay. Georges Perec's vertical palindrome, rotational ambigram in French. What is that? Well, I guess that's something in French, isn't it? Good ambigrams. Calligram. A set of words arranged in a way that performs a thematically related image. Oh, yeah, it does look like a smiley face, doesn't it? Two and one. Real world prank fake. Zen yes, embroidered on a blue t-shirt. Alright, that's pretty cool. Cognac in danger. That's fun. Yeah, we don't really have much that we can use these for in our particular necessities. I do like this one of honey or was there one for love, I think? There had to have been one for love. But yeah, the tessellation ones are my favorite, personally. Yeah, right? like this one here in particular is really cool. I like the fact that it says future and the fact that it's a ball. It's basically a ball. I'll say Adam. Okay, yeah, this is the one that said love you. They've achieved the power of orb. Yeah, anybody who can orbulate something by hand is terrifying. I don't know, that shit that Escher did, I once got my hands on a book from... when I was in high school, my art teacher had a bunch of art books that we could just borrow real quick. And I got one on Escher that was sadly in German, so I couldn't understand most of it. But I did understand that dude was locked in when it came to math. Alright. That's enough of that. We still have a lot of the line art to get through. Still not sure what to add for the buttons, though. I think I should just go with my original idea and make it the Reuben boss. Is it? Hang on. 1915. Okay, it's in the... I think that's public domain by this point. Hang on. Is Reuben Boss public domain? Is it? Well, no. Hang on. Developed around 1915 by the Danish psychologist Edward Reuben, presents a viewer the mental choice of two interpretations, each of which is valid. Okay, one includes the other. Maybe I could make it like a Reuben Boss, but that it isn't two people. So maybe it's like... Or actually, hang on. Yeah, no, that looks very awkward. Alright, here's what let's do. I'm going to make it the same shape as the hair ornament she's got up here. I think that's a good, simple solution. But yeah, I feel like typography is definitely one of those fields where you would feel your brain expanding once you got it. Okay. Well, even if you don't really necessarily get it, as long as you knew a thing or two, you'd still be able to design stuff graphically pretty competently. I think as long as you understood a couple principles of it, you'd be able to hold your own. A master of the letters. I feel like if you're feeling particularly writer's blocked, I feel like if you try to spend some time learning typography, I feel like that should let you return some power to you over the letters. You know, remind them who's really the boss. It's cutting it a little bit close to the border of the panel. Anyway, let's copy this here and then move it to here. Wait, where is it? Oh, it. Oh, wow. Okay, I see. It's over here. Okay, that's gonna be a problem. Hang on. I need to duplicate this layer and then just make it so that only one of the panels is there. Okay, this one's gotta go here, and we'll move it down. And this one's gotta go here. Okay, perfect. Crisis averted. It is such a pleasant surprise when you can just fix something in 3 seconds and it doesn't have to be a huge federal issue. I shouldn't get too used to it, but I hope that I can keep up my winning streak. Okay, and then this last one. I don't even know. Oh, wait, hang on. I think I know why I have this last panel down here. Okay, yeah. I understand. I see what's happened here. Okay, I gotta get rid of this ruler, and then I gotta go back up here and remove it from here. Second verse, same as first. Sometimes things can be nice, actually. Yeah, right? I don't know. I definitely feel like I've taken it upon myself to have the philosophy that you should always prepare for the worst and hope for the best. But I think that that's led to a rather pessimistic outlook. It's not healthy to think that way all the time. Well, I guess that goes without saying. But I guess where possible, I'd like to make it so that I could make the preparation so I don't need to feel weird being optimistic. I think that's the big thing, is that as long as your preparations are good, you can be optimistic about stuff. But if your preparations aren't good, well, even if you prepare sometimes, there's not much you can do. But that's how it is. Yeah. Recently, I took some time to start rereading trashy wuxia manhwa on the internet, and I noticed something about a series that I didn't really notice before, which was that all their backgrounds and even their weapons were all 3D rendered objects. And that makes a lot of sense from a production standpoint, but at the same time, it's something that they did so well that I barely noticed it while reading the story on my first pass. I need to learn how to do that. That needs to be my method of doing things. Although I guess to do that, I would need to learn way more about modeling. Not to mention, it's probably got a lot of skill involved itself. I'd also need to learn more about making Blender actually spit out what you want it to spit out, right? Rendering, I guess, would be the word. I'd love to learn how to do something like that. That definitely feels like something that would be like a huge upgrade if you didn't have it before. Also, I need to remove these these small set of lines so it's consistent with the other bit of the collar. Or I guess, would this still be lapel or would this be collar? This would be lapel, I think. Yeah, no, this would be lapel because I think lapel starts at the chest and then goes up to the neck. I don't know if that's an official definition. Okay, then grab this. Grab these. But I imagine that's how it has to be for a lot of the comics. I don't know, maybe some of them do have people who are specialists in backgrounds and can just draw those freehand. But I feel like for most people, for most studios, that does seem to be what would be the most economic solution. I don't know. I'd love to learn more about the production of webtoons in South Korea because I think it would provide a lot of good information that would be different because I feel like even though a lot of the stuff in Japanese manga has been moved to digital, it is still predominantly a black and white medium. And since I'm interested in working in color, I feel like that would provide much more valuable information for how to make a comic the way that I want to make it. That being said, if I do end up putting my stuff on Webtoon or Tapas, I think I would have to. I wonder if there's much out there on that actually. I would be curious. I feel like it's not nearly as well covered because very few people are. The weeaboos outnumber the outnumber Koreaboos like 5-1. Like if the people who are nerds about South Korea and the people who are nerds about Japan fought each other, it would be like the Band of the Hawk against the Eclipse. You know what I mean? It's like they would be horribly outnumbered. So maybe that's why there's more information on manga production. I do feel like I do see more people who are interested in Korean stuff recently though. And that's always nice to see. It's nice to see a nice spread of culture. Although I am also becoming much more fond of the fact that the Chinese culture stuff is making some kind of weird resurgence. I don't know why more and more people are posting about like Chinese stuff. And that's my personal favorite. So it's a benefit to me. But I do imagine. I also think that it would probably be more YouTube based than anything else. I feel like there used to be a good amount of stuff that was produced in books, and a good amount of stuff that was produced on YouTube, and a good amount of stuff that was produced in blog posts. But I think now, I think webtoon stuff would almost certainly be mostly on YouTube. People being into manga or anime definitely feels like it has been around a lot longer than Korea, really. Which, you know, probably lots of geopolitical reasons for that, but yeah, that is definitely true as well. There's also I think it's also the fact that Japan I don't know why, maybe Japan also was just a little bit faster on the draw in terms of its cultural exports or being able to organize animation studios quicker. Like you said, there's probably a lot of geopolitical reasons for that. Because I do feel like you do hear a lot about the animation industry in Japan and, you know, the influence that Osamu Tezuka had and how Disney influenced him in return and, you know, kind of that sort of back and forth. And also in regards to, you know, samurai movies being turned into cowboy movies and that sort of thing. Not to mention the sheer amount of electronics that were exported from Japan to the U.S. The U.S. especially. I think there were probably also other Japan has been able to build that up since after World War II stuff, but Korea's been sort of having that to build that up since Korean War stuff, which is a bit more recent. That is definitely true. Yeah, hard agree on that. Okay, so this would go like this, and then like this. I'm trying to figure out how this paper would float in 3D. Yeah. And I feel like China has only just recently been able to start doing cultural export stuff because we did have, I mean, there was some to some extent with kung fu movies and stuff like that, but a lot of that was, I feel like, very limited to nowadays where, for example, we see, credit where credit is due. MiHoYo games are a huge Chinese cultural export. But even those have been really influenced by Japanese culture, especially in the art style more than anything. I don't know. It's a very complicated kind of stew pot that has kind of arisen from everything. For whatever reason, Japan's anime art style has just mogged completely, and I don't know why that. There's probably a couple other geopolitical reasons for that, or societal reasons, opportunities. It's very difficult to say why one thing became so popular, but it did. Yeah, I'm definitely not an expert on any of that stuff, but it sure did. I'm sure there are people who have studied this shit in depth that could probably tell us more. I'd love to pick their brain on recent cultural developments. But like I said, this is my own personal bias. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of people saying stuff about Chinese culture in a like a lot of the stuff that the Westerners used to say about China was very much fear mongery shit. But now it's like it is just like the same good hearted natured joking, right? Like for example, come to Brazil and stuff like that. How that kind of intersected. It's more laughing with them than laughing at them, and I do think that that's an awesome development. Or like that dude who sells sausages, that dude in Chongqing who sells sausages and that is able to perfectly mimic Donald Trump's speaking patterns. How the fuck did he do that? Did he just like watch videos over and over until he was able to get it down pat, or did he just grow up in New York and then move back to Chongqing? The world is definitely a vast place where all kinds of strange things can happen. But yeah, we need to get the Chongqing sausage guy on the Tonight Show or something. We gotta get him like Costco guys, kind of big. I think that's the only way we'll be able to weather the oncoming presidency. Okay, then over here. There's definitely been a lot of like anti-China sentiment and fear mongering still around for a while with the U.S. thanks to a bunch of stuff, and then I think that China in general has been pretty heavily restrictive on stuff for their end for a while too. Seems like it's starting to change for the better. I agree. Yeah, I think we're finally putting aside our differences. Well, Ecuador doesn't really have any differences with China. In fact, we have a lot of overlap in terms of Ecuador had a lot of Chinese immigrants, like a lot of other South American countries on the Pacific side. So we've always just been kind of cool with them. But I am glad that it's just becoming more chill. When the vibes are good, people are happy. It is at any rate a welcome change from the fear mongering. I wonder if there's a particular reason for that as well. Like, I understand why the fear mongering happened. It's because the U.S. generally sees China as an economic opponent. But besides that, so that makes sense why there would be a lot of propaganda for fear mongering. But besides that, I am struggling to conceive of why relations, or at least public perception, has improved to this degree. It's easy to find a reason to make something worse, but it's very rare to see a reason for why something improves. I don't know. Maybe people are just becoming better in general. Although that is also a risky assumption. That sounds horrible. That's a mean thing to say. I shouldn't say that. Okay, then over here. I should also remove the wrinkles back there. Also, just finish the bottom half of this huge lady. It is occasionally fun to just make a woman who is entirely shaped like a refrigerator. Just a real big lady. Okay, then we can move on to the next panel, which is this one here. It is fun. It is fun that the guy up here, when he was a teenager, just looked like a little bug-eyed freak. I don't know. I think that's just a fun detail. Because I feel like for a lot of characters, I think my idea is mostly from Baki, right? Where they either look nothing like they do as their adult selves, or they look like their adult selves, but like very much rounder, and also like holding a lollipop and wearing a propeller hat. Like I was unable back when I was reading Baki, and it shifted to the chapters when it was like covering him as a kid. I had no idea that was supposed to be the same guy. He looked completely different. I think especially because the shading of his hair was different. As an adult it looked more brownish, but I think as a child he was supposed to dye it red, or he seemed to have dyed it red at some point. In either case, it was very difficult to tell that was the same dude as when he grew up, but it was. That would be a really funny idea if there was like an in-universe discussion, right? Like, was this guy body snatched? You know, like imagine if Batman had a similar situation, right? And Batman looked way different as a child, and there were just like in-universe discussions for the art style change. Like, was Batman body snatched and replaced by some kind of alien as a justification for why, or like as an in-universe discussion of why the art style changed? Hold up, I didn't actually put this inside of the frame, did I? Wait, this is the wrong frame. There we go. I think the best example of a way that I've seen it done is there was this one comic, Lavender Jack. It is a webcomic on the internet. You can read the whole thing now if you wanted. Where there was a guest art week for the comic, and the way that the author did it is that he put the characters in like a masquerade ball. He didn't put the main characters in there. The screen was over this masquerade ball that was discussing current events in the story, and because each character that talked at the masquerade ball had a different opinion of the main character, that's why the guest art. That's the justification for why the guest art was also in many radical different styles, because each person had a different opinion over the main characters, and so the perception of each one was different, and that's why the art style was different. I thought that was super clever. Lavender Jack is a very fun read, especially for the first season. It was a little bit harder to follow in season 2, and season 3 was easy enough to follow, but it had some plot elements that I thought were kind of weird. But season 1 was a delight to read. Okay, then over here. Actually, maybe I should have. I really like how the silhouette hangs on this picture, but I do think that he should have his hand out also waving. Yoink. That being said, meta commentary inside of a comic does feel like it's something that needs to be handled carefully. I feel like there is the fun kind of meta commentary where it's easy enough to follow. I think the main distinction is how heavy-handed it is and how fun it is to actually read. Because I feel like if it's meta commentary for the sake of being meta commentary, it gets a little bit dragged down in how much it's trying to portray itself as such. If it's like a decent story beat and it works in that regard, I think that's a very strong form of meta commentary. Like, for example, the the guest art thing, like I mentioned, that feels like a very good example of it. But I think the one that I disliked the most was, and I hate to rag on something that everybody else rags on too, was actually Borderlands. Like, I feel like Borderlands has the exact correct amount of meta humor. That's like, oh, okay, I know what you're thinking. Why do I have to collect all these things? Well, it's because I said so. Or, it gives you a really... It acknowledges the reasons it gives you for the quest lines are stupid. But it also doesn't meaningfully make them not stupid. You know what I mean? That's like when you're in a crummy situation and somebody gives you permission to complain. Like that's not making the situation less crummy. You're just making it feels a little patronizing. It is a bit much, I think. Gameplay is a lot of fun, but I do think the commentary is a bit much. Or the writing, I suppose. May the sleeve should be a little bit lower, so it's like right here. That thumb feels kind of short. Let's give it like a little bit... Let's give it a little bit extra length. Okay, then over here. I think the other one that did it in a way that kind of started to annoy me was Saints Row. I remember playing Saints Row the 4th, or Saints Row 4, and not being particularly impressed with some of the meta humor in that. Like, particularly how, like, I think, like, one of the missions was even called Jump the Shark or something. I'm like, alright, so you're acknowledging that this is stupid. Cool, that does not make me feel significantly better about this. I don't know. I think I'm generally not a fan of stuff that just makes it feel like... How do I put it? There's a little bit of an intersection. I don't particularly like things that are stupid for the sake of being stupid. Like, I think that's a lot of the reason why I just never vibe with a lot of the YouTube poops, for example. I appreciate the artisanry and artistic fervor that goes into making them. I don't particularly find them funny. Or, stuff that's just like, oh, I'm talking in an annoying voice for a while, or I'm saying a lot of words that are supposed to be annoying. That never really appealed to me as a form of humor. You said that it's acknowledging this stuff can be silly, but without actually doing anything with that. You also just still do have to do that. Yeah. Like, I think the main example that I remember from Saints Row 4, for example, is at one point you have to deactivate like 4 switches or something. And one of the characters actually comments on it being like, hey, is it just me or does it feel like we've had to deactivate 4 switches a bunch of times? And one of the other characters, who is supposed to be a computer that is helping you, is like, actually, that's because the technology in this is optimized for having 4 switches, and that's why it happens all the time. And the other character is like, wait, really? And the other... and I don't remember if the computer actually says, no, dumbass, it's just an arbitrary number. Or if it just lets the confirmation hang in the air for why you always have to hit 4 switches. But I remember that pissed me off for some reason. Yeah, I still feel like it should be a little bit skinnier here. But yeah, I do agree that when they don't really do anything with the fourth wall break, you know, beyond acknowledging that it's supposed to be a fourth wall break and that that's supposed to be the funny part, it does feel a lot like when you click on something that claims to be a video essay or an analysis and it's just a summary. I wouldn't say it's false marketing necessarily, but it does feel like you've been duped. Okay. I think it might be better to avoid making the wrinkles here on the line art and maybe just add them during the shading, because I do think that he is still supposed to look fairly young, and I do think that does work. He does look fairly young, but especially if I take away the wrinkles. There we go. Okay, then put this over here. Did I put the armband on the other arm? I didn't, did I? I guess it's not really an armband either. It's more like it's one of those high visibility strips. I love making these kinds of line arts where the entire character is just like a wobbly mess of lines. I remember learning about this kind of way of drawing someone because I wanted to look up a Kaiji panel where he's freaking the fuck out, and that's how they draw him. Hang on. Kaiji freaking out. Or at least I think I saw him drawn like that. Half the panels of this guy is where he's freaked out. Okay, wait, no, here we go. This is a good example of it. You see how even his face looks like it's been turned into wobbly lines? That's the idea. It's like the whole body's made out of jelly. I do think I will eventually read Kaiji, but I feel like I need to emotionally prepare myself for it because I hear it's a pretty intense experience. But I've heard everybody who reads Kaiji is like, yeah, this is the greatest manga ever made. I think the same deal with Kaiji is like Vinland Saga. It's like everybody who reads it is like, you have got to pick this up. It is a life changing experience. But because it's not particularly a mainstream book, it's kind of in obscurity. Especially Kaiji, I feel. I don't think did Kaiji ever get an official English translation? Hang on. Kaiji Volume 1 English. Okay, no, they do sell the English copy. Gambling Apocalypse Kaiji Volume 1. December 10th, 2019. How about that? It's a fairly recent translation then. 2019 is, well, no, actually that's 6 years ago now. I was gonna say that's a fairly recent translation, but no, that was 6 years ago. I'm like, yeah, late 2010s. That's still fairly reasoned. No, dog, that is that is not reasoned at all. Wait, hang on. Hang on. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're coming up on 8. So that is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This should be a 5. 5, 6. Yeah, we're coming up on 6 years. Okay, wait, no, we can only count 5 years because that was December of 2019. But all the same, that's crazy. Also, that does mean, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Wait, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, no. Okay, so officially, if I make it to the end of the year, I will have been out of university longer than I've been in it. Crazy work. The passage of time is crazy. All kinds of things have happened since that time. Hopefully all kinds of good things will continue to happen. Although that will also depend on my own efforts. Okay, then over here. Perfect. Okay, yeah, I was worried I hadn't been making enough space for the speech bubbles, but it seems like I did have them in, so that's good to know. I think that would be a good place to end things here for today. We're kind of coming up in that time, and we've made a lot of good progress. 50% of page 1, more or less, complete. Alright. I'll be publishing the schedule for next week, either later tonight or early tomorrow. In the meantime, stay safe out there. Thank you for coming by, and take care. Have a good week. Later. Bye.